Hello everybody, and thank you for joining me. It has been a while since I've been here, so I will not waste time with too much housekeeping. My name is Donovan, this is Salt of the Streets, and let's get into the video. I'm not gonna lie to you. When I first started this video, it was essentially a Kamala Harris hit piece about how she was the worst, and this is gonna be the worst thing for the country, and we can't have this, and we can't stand for this. We all need to concentrate together and focus around defeating Kamala Harris. And it is turned much more now into a video story about the concentration of power in our political institutions that is reaching a tipping point or a point of no return, or as I believe Michael Malice would put it, the conditions are being created for the system to change into something darker than we have now, where we have less information and less choice, and in turn less freedom. I am beginning to come around to accepting the idea that most people in this world, in this country, would rather be safe than be free. I know for sure that freedom is the best option, so I'm going to continue to defend that until my very end. A little bit of context, a little bit of background information for the video. 2 days after I finished my last video, released my last video about Joe Biden and Donald Trump at the debate they had, Joe Biden drops out of the presidential race, and via coup, Kamala Harris is very quickly chosen as the new Democratic nominee in the presidential race this year. I'm not being hyperbolic or exaggerating when I'm talking about a coup. The way that they stepped down, right? Joe Biden, all while his different apparatchiks, the White House figureheads are still on the news. They're still talking about how Joe Biden is not going to drop out. There is a letter that is released onto the internet, not on Joe Biden's personal, like on wrong stationery, with the signature that people are questioning very highly, in which Joe Biden says in this letter that he is going to step down, and it's just better for the country if he allows the process to take place. There is a report that is released not too long ago by Cy Hirsch, in which he's detailing this background scenario happening in the White House, where Joe Biden is refusing to step down from the presidential race. He believes that he can still win. He's going to continue forward, but everybody else in the White House is kind of surrounding him, telling them that he needs to step down. This is no longer his time. Different people, Nancy Pelosi, are coming out, we have concern about this. Different Democratic figures are coming out. Apparently it boils over to the point that Joe Biden receives a phone call from Barack Obama, in which Barack Obama, this is according to Cy Hirsch, right, who is apparently a very a legitimate reporter, right, in which Barack Obama calls Joe Biden and tells him it is time for you to step down. If you don't step down, we are prepared. All the people in your White House are prepared to invoke the 25th Amendment and take you out of office if you will not step out of the presidential race. It is at that time in which this letter is released, and then I believe it's on Twitter that Joe Biden says that he's going to push for Kamala Harris. He's going to support her and endorse her for this race. And at this time, it's official. As a result of all of this, Kamala Harris is officially selected. She's not voted for. No, the delegates did not get together, right? The convention had not happened yet for her to be chosen. As a result of this background coup, Kamala Harris is selected as the new nominee for the DNC. And immediately after her selection as the nominee, the media protection campaign starts. I say defense campaign because lest we not forget that Kamala Harris has been a hated figure in the DNC and in the country since 2020, and possibly even before that when she ran for the presidential race. In 2020, she was exposed through the race, through the polling, through Tulsi Gabbard as the transparent individual as she is, who she is, the transparent hypocrite that she is. And nobody has been able to forget that ever since then. When she got into office, she's the only person besides Joe Biden who had a lower favorability rating throughout the entire time up until this point. This shift happens in which apparently now everybody loves her. She had a brief blip during the 2020 campaign after she hit Joe Biden with this, that little girl was me moment when they're talking about the forced busing and whether Joe Biden was in favor of this and the forcing of this. And after that, the very next debate in which all the Democrats are on stage, Tulsi Gabbard put Kamala Harris down like a fucking dog in the street.
Putting body cameras on special agents in the state of California, and I'm proud of that work.
I want to bring in Congresswoman Gabbard. Congresswoman Gabbard, you took issue with Senator Harris confronting Vice President Biden at the last debate. You called it a, quote, false accusation that Joe Biden is a racist. What's your response?
I want to bring the conversation back to the broken criminal justice system that is disproportionately negatively impacting Black and brown people all across this country today. Now, Senator Harris says she's proud of her record as a prosecutor and that she'll be a prosecutor president, but I'm deeply concerned about this record. There are too many examples to cite, but she put over 1,500 people in jail for marijuana violations and then laughed about it when she was asked if she ever smoked marijuana. She blocked evidence. She blocked evidence that would have freed an innocent man from death row until the courts forced her to do so. She kept people in prison beyond their sentences to use them as cheap labor for the state of California. And she fought to keep cash bail system in place that impacts poor people in the worst kind of way.
Thank you, Congresswoman. Senator Harris, your response?
We don't need to hear this, right? The point still exists. The point is still that all of these things are still true. This speaks to who she is as a person, because all this happened before she came into office, right? This did not stop. This behavior, this mentality about humanity, about the people who she supposedly serves for, right, still exists. This is still the way that she thinks about things, and this is why she doesn't care. This is why there's all these reports from people who work for her, staffers that work for her, that when she's in office, she's going to meetings, she's not prepared, and then she snaps at her staffers for not preparing, for not knowing things, right? She refuses to read the information, she refuses to educate herself, and then blames other people for what's going on here. She has no idea what's going on. She does not care about you. She doesn't care about us. She doesn't care about this country. She cares about her own advancement. That is what Kamala Harris cares about. And it was done after that. I mean, Kamala Harris never received more than, I think, 5%, depending on what polling station you look at. Nothing. Nobody cares about her. Nobody knew who she was. This is the first time that she served a full term in federal office. Before this, she was senator. She was a first-term senator before she's elected as VP. You can see in this polling, this is from real clear polling, right? And this is for the 2020 Democratic National Presidential Nomination. So you can see the different colors here that represent different people. The green, obviously, is Joe Biden. This blue here is Bernie Sanders. I don't know if you guys can see my pointer, but that takes different things away. So you can go along this timeline, right? April, July, October. You can see when different people are there, how they're polling. Yang, 63%, Klobuchar, blah, blah, blah. I believe that this yellow line is Harris, right? The yellow line is Kamala Harris. So you can see there's this point in July where she has this big hit, and this what they're saying that she's above 10, so let's call it 15, right? If we want to be nice, we'll call it 15 at one point in time, for a brief moment of time. This is right after that this girl is me, right? That's right. And then she's murdered by Kamala Harris on stage, and just dumps until she's gone, until she has to drop out, because nobody fucking cares about her. Nobody likes her. There is no one ever that gave a fuck about her up until now, when she's the only person who's defeating Donald, who's there to try and defeat Donald Trump. That's now people care about her. Okay, so it's plain to see that nobody likes Kamala Harris. That's why she drops out. That's why she can't be in the race anymore. Nobody wants to see her anywhere. It's only after Biden secures the nomination, that he's in the attempt to secure the nomination for the Democratic Party, that he makes a deal with Jim Clyburn, I believe, this backdoor deal to select Kamala Harris as a VP in exchange for the black endorsement of the Democratic Party, so that he can be pushed forward and try and win against Donald Trump in 2020. That's how she got here, right? There's no question from the beginning that she got in as a DEI candidate. There's no, that is the understanding. That's why she's here, because she has no other qualifications. She's a lawyer, that's fine. Who gives a fuck when you're VP? It just doesn't matter. That's not enough at this point now. When Joe Biden and Kamala Harris take office, she is shoved into a corner. They try and ignore her as much as possible. She doesn't talk to anybody. She does very little public appearances. She's given zero responsibilities other than the border, right? That's the one thing that's dumped on her plate. She's pushed aside because, like I said, she is the least likable person in the White House, besides Joe Biden, up until the point that he steps down, and then she skyrocketed to popularity. So like I said, one of the few responsibilities that Kamala Harris is given when she's put into, when she takes office with Joe Biden, is to, what's the technical way they put it, is to address the root causes of illegal immigration in the Northern Triangle countries. I believe is exactly what they said, or Central America, right? That's what she's going for. It's for like Honduras, Mexico, Guatemala, all these things, right? This is what she's supposed to try and identify, and this is what she's working on. So that's her task. Illegal immigration is the one thing that she is supposed to go for. We saw the way that she's turned out. She doesn't visit the border. It's horrific the way that she handles it. It's obvious not only by the way that she handles herself, or the way that she conducts herself and goes about handling this job, but the results of this job. The highest immigration numbers we have ever seen, illegal immigrants all over the country, people losing their jobs. It's horrific. We see this. This is one of the biggest political topics that's in conversation right now, is legal immigration. This undoubtedly is at least in part due to the way that Kamala Harris handles herself as vice president in this role, as borders are apparently, maybe not. This is what we're going to talk about now. So in case we all forgot, it's Kamala Harris, Lester Holt.
Okay.
Do you have any plans to visit the border?
At some point, we are going to the border. We've been to the border. So this whole thing about the border, we've been to the border. We've been to the border.
This whole thing about the border.
And I haven't been to Europe. And I mean, I don't understand the point that you're making. I'm not discounting the importance of the border.
Well, I mentioned it because even I know Republicans.
You can see the pain on his face where he knows that as a part of the system, he has to try and hold it together and make it easy for her to answer. But he also recognizes the little bit of Lester Holt that still is an actual human being on the inside, the core of him that still is like has a soul. You can see it in his mouth, and he's like, "What the fuck is going on here? This woman is really trying to justify. She's in charge of the border. She's handling immigration. She's handling illegal immigration. She hasn't been to the fucking border. She hasn't visited there, and she's trying to make some weird connection. Well, I haven't been to Europe either. I don't understand what the problem is."
Come at you on this, but Democratic Congressman Cuellar, as a border district, has said to you and the president, "Come, you need to see this."
Listen, I care about what's happening at the border. I'm in Guatemala because my focus is dealing with the root causes of migration. There may be some who think that that is not important, but it is my firm belief that if we care about what's happening at the border, we better care about the root causes and address them. And so that's what I'm doing.
So you could see the cope there already, that she's trying to already create distance between herself, what's going on at the border. Immigration is getting horrible at that time. She's like, I just don't really see what the connection is. You know, I'm focusing on the root cause. I'm focusing down there at the core so we can see what's going on here. So again, to try and argue that that has no connection with what's going on at the border, that either means you were doing nothing or you accomplished nothing over that time. Either you were completely hands-off and you just actually were doing nothing, or whatever work you were doing accomplished nothing because the problem continued to get worse. So I really don't understand this disconnection that they're trying to create, and that this argument is happening now with the media about whether or not she really had anything to do with the border. The utter failure and ineptitude, one could argue intentional, of the Harris administration and the Biden administration began this corporate media spin up of this defense, like I was talking about, where, I mean, any single thing that you could try and come at Kamala Harris for was defended against, especially any connection with the failure of the Biden administration. Anything that's happened in the last 4 years that went badly, they are distancing the media. Corporate media is doing everything they can to distance her from that, but also try and push her forward with any of the successes that were there. They're doing like an old school Trump thing, right? Where it's like, well, I didn't have anything to do with that, but also check out this fucking cool thing that I did over the last 4 years, right? They're doing this same type of thing here to try and push her forward, but separate her from this fucking chaos, this horrificness that has been the last 4 years in our country because of the Biden-Harris, at least in part, to the Biden-Harris administration. I don't like to put on them too much because I think it just puts too much power in the office of the president, but I'm also arguing to you consistently that the power in that office grows all the time, and it's very, very dangerous. So to argue that they have nothing to do with it is insane. To argue that it's totally on them, I think, is also a little bit ridiculous. But to argue that they have nothing at all to do with this and that we can't blame her at all, this is ridiculous. It's a lie, honestly, to you. They're trying to deceive you. So our first article here, Biden tasks Harris with stemming the migration on the southern border. Vice President expected to focus on both curbing the current flow of migrants and coordinating with countries in the region to address the root cause of migration. This is just the headline. This is NBC News. Let's go down and see what date this is. It's March 24th, 2021. So this was a full 3 years ago that this article, 3.5 almost of this, the 3.5, this article came out. Washington, President Joe Biden announced Wednesday that he has appointed Vice President Kamala Harris to lead efforts to stem migration across the U.S.-Mexico border as the administration faces growing political pressure to address a surge in undocumented migrant children unaccompanied by parents. Biden said during, and we can remember that, right? This is when the cages, and Joe Biden said, who built the cages, Joe? This whole thing, right? Biden said during an immigration meeting at the White House that he had asked Harris to lead the administration's effort with Mexico and the Northern Triangle, El Salvador, Guatemala, and Honduras, countries that will need help stemming the movement of so many folks, stemming the migration to our southern border. A senior administration official says Harris's role would focus on 2 tracks, both curbing the current flow of migrants and implementing a long-term strategy that addresses the root causes of migration. Cabinet members, including the Secretary of State, are expected to work closely with Harris on these issues. Okay, no matter what you say, no matter what the term is, whether you want to call her the borders are or not, she has 2 tracks of focus, right? One of them is to curb the current flow of migrants, and the second one is to implement a long-term strategy that addresses the root causes. Your very first job is to stem the flow of migrants, and it only continues. This is a defense article from Media Matters. God loves Media Matters. We all love Media Matters, right? Who's here to put us in our place because we're terrible journalists and we don't know what we're doing. And of course, the headline of Kamala Harris was never the quote border czar, despite right-wing claims. After President Joe Biden announced he was ending his re-election campaign and endorsed Vice President Kamala Harris for right-wing media, right-wing media began to resurface the lie that Harris was the Biden administration's border czar, trying to pin the quote-unquote failures of the border, quote-unquote failures, literally the highest numbers we've ever seen, quote-unquote failures, on the border on Harris as part of their push to make immigration a central theme of the 2024 presidential campaign. They don't need to push for that. Again, the highest numbers we've ever seen, this is people's focus. This is what people give a fuck about because it leaks into so many different aspects of their lives. But that was not her title, nor how her role functioned in the border policy. So we just read another article that's from when that happened that says that was her job. Let's see what else they have to say. Harris's involvement in the border primarily extended to addressing root causes in Central American countries causing people to flee. Not true. In 2021, Biden tapped Harris to lead the White House's effort to address migration across the southern border. Okay, what the fuck did you just say? In this role, Harris was charged with addressing the supposed root causes of migration by improving economic and social conditions in several Central American countries and encouraging the stronger enforcement along those countries' own borders. What are we doing here? The supposed root causes, as if there are no root causes. It just is a thing that happens that people don't like where they're at, so millions upon millions of them go to a different place for no reason. No reason, just happens to be that way. People from Africa, people from China, all over Asia, they're coming here. It's no reason. There is no root cause. I understand that's not the triangle countries, but the fact that there's no root causes of migration, this shows you how ridiculous this cover-up campaign that's going on here. Let's go to the next point. CBS. Harris was not asked to be the administration's border czar or to oversee immigration policy and enforcement at the U.S.-Mexico border. Again, that first article that we just read, this is not true. CBS explained that has mainly been the responsibility of Homeland Security Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas and his department, which is true. He's doing a lot of that. He's working very intimately with CBP, but that doesn't mean that wasn't her job, because we just read that. Okay, this one is from the BBC, again, March 24th, 2021. Let's see how they covered it across the pond. U.S. President Joe Biden has put Vice President Kamala Harris in charge of controlling migration at the southern border following a big influx of new arrivals. Interesting. Mr. Biden said he was giving her a tough job, but that she was the most qualified person to do it. Shout out. Who else better qualified, right? Nobody could have done a better job, that's for sure. The numbers of people arriving have grown since Mr. Biden took office and only continue to grow after this article. They include hundreds of unaccompanied minors who are being held in immigration detention facilities. Mr. Biden's predecessor, Donald Trump, was widely criticized over his government's treatment of young migrants at the U.S.-Mexico border, which continued during Joe Biden after it started during Obama. Since January, the Biden administration has reversed a policy of turning away unaccompanied children, instead choosing to process them and place them with sponsoring families in the U.S. or traffickers. But Mr. Biden's critics say his policies have led to a surge in illegal immigration. In February, U.S. customs officials took more than 100,000 people into custody, saying the southern border a 28% increase on the previous month. Isn't it interesting? Announcing Mrs. Harris' appointment as his immigration czar. Okay, get the fuck out of here. It's announcing Ms. Harris's appointment as his immigration czar. Mr. Biden told reporters and officials at the White House she's the most qualified person to do it, to lead our efforts with Mexico and the Northern Triangle, Honduras, Guatemala, El Salvador, and the countries that are going to need help in stemming the movement of so many folks, stemming the migration to our southern border. That's what we just talked about. It's the same quote. Mr. Biden said Mrs. Harris's past work as California's Attorney General made her well suited to lead the effort, adding, when she speaks for me. Okay. No control, right? No influence. That's not her job. What's the BBC saying? Well, what are we supposed to believe? Don't believe anything that you're reading now. That doesn't matter, right? Don't believe anything that happened at the time. Worry about what we're telling you right now. In response, Ms. Harris said, needless to say, the work will not be easy, but it is important work. Many of those arriving at the border have fled poverty and violence in Central America. One of those are the root causes, supposed root causes that we're looking at. In an interview with CBS on Wednesday, Ms. Harris said there was a need to deal with the root causes of what's happening in the Northern Triangle. Interesting, shocking, supposed root causes, right? Media Matters, right? Dealing with what we need to do around aid in a way that is about developing those countries so that we also deal with the cause of why people are coming into our country. Supposed cause. please, Miss Harris. Again, this one's from CNN. This is from June 1st, 2021. So this is just a few months after she's put in charge of the border, right, as the border czar, according to BBC, as what the head of immigration things, not all the things, but these particular things. The White House, I don't know how else they would say it in the White House if they're not calling her a border czar. In the week since the president asked her to take charge of immigration, right? From Central America, Vice President Kamala Harris and her staff have sought to make one thing clear: she does not manage the southern border. Two White House officials familiar with the dynamic said Harris and her aides have emphasized internally that they want to focus on conditions in Central America that push migrants to the southern border, as President Joe Biden tasked her to do. What's the first thing he said? A record number of unaccompanied children are crossing the U.S. this spring, and the throngs of desperate minors present a heart-rending problem as well as a political one. If you ask me, because this is 3 months after the initial announcement on March 24th, I would wager that they knew that there's nothing that she could do, or they saw the problem continue to get worse, and they recognized that politically at home, there's nothing they were going to do to fix the immigration system. They know that she isn't going to be able to fix this. They know it's not going to change probably in their presidency because it only got worse. So immediately, 3 months, they're already trying to be like, actually, we don't fuck with that. We have nothing to do with that. That's that guy over there. He's doing it. Even though that was my job and that's what they said, we're not worried about that. And this last one from the AP. Again, this is from March 24th, 2021. President Joe Biden has tapped Vice President Kamala Harris to lead the White House effort to tackle the migration challenge at the southern border and work with Central American nations to address root causes of the problem. Biden made the announcement as he and Harris met at the White House on Wednesday with Health and Human Services Secretary Xavier Becerra, Homeland Security Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas, and other immigration advisors to discuss the increase in migrants, including many unaccompanied minors. They literally just found the most Hispanic sounding people they could and like, you guys are going to handle this. In delegating the matter to Harris, Biden is seeking to replicate a dynamic that played out when he served as President Barack Obama's vice president. Obama turned to Biden in his first term to lead the White House effort to draw down U.S. troops in Iraq and oversee implementation of stimulus in response to the Great Recession. This is some of the mainstream media coverage that we're talking about. This episode here, this podcast that we're going to be looking at is the July 22nd episode from Up First from NPR. We're also going to be looking at the July 23rd episode of Start Here from ABC News to talk about some of the ways that they're covering for Kamala Harris immediately after it's announced that she's going to be taking Joe Biden's place. So let's start with this NPR episode.
I feel energized about Harris and the chance that we can only honestly go up from here.
How does she perform against Trump?
And the Trump campaign has wasted no time switching gears to attack the VP's record.
Well, I don't know, Kamala. I did serve in the United States Marine Corps and build a business. What the hell have you done other than collect the check?
Terms apply.
Always the bank
See
ads on these
Capital
pods.
One.
President Biden said yesterday he is giving up the Democratic nomination and dropping out of the race for re-election.
Biden endorsed Vice President Kamala Harris as his choice to take over the top of the Democratic ticket, but it's unclear how the party will now proceed.
We're joined now by NPR senior White House correspondent Tamara Keith, who is in Rehoboth Beach, Delaware, where Biden has been recovering from COVID. Also with us is NPR national political correspondent Mara Liasson. All right, Tam, let's start off with you. You're leading off here. President Biden endorsed Vice President Kamala Harris to be the nominee. So what's Harris plan to do with that endorsement?
Well, in a statement, Harris said that she is honored that President Biden endorsed her and that it is her intention to earn and win the nomination. She added that she will do everything in her power to unite the Democratic Party and unite the nation to defeat Donald Trump. And according to a person familiar with her day, Harris worked the phones for more than 10 hours on Sunday, calling Democratic Party leaders and talking about her plans.
The only reason that's impressive is because Joe Biden can't do that. That's the only reason. If you're running a campaign, what else do you think you're doing? She's calling people to get money. She's calling super duper rich people to collect money. That's what she's doing.
At this point, we don't know yet if anyone will be able to get enough support from Democratic convention delegates to make this a real race. So far, we have seen a ton of endorsements pour in for Harris, including members of Congress, entire state delegations, and some of the big-name Democrats who had previously been mentioned as possible candidates. But in their statements praising Biden's decision, fellow Californian Nancy Pelosi and former President Barack Obama notably didn't explicitly endorse Harris. In a meeting with campaign staff yesterday after Biden's announcement,
Not openly. We talked about that Cy Hirsch article.
Jen O'Malley Dillon, who's led Biden's reelection effort, told staff that they still have a job and they are quickly pivoting to be full steam ahead behind Vice President Biden. The branding and website have already changed. So much of their campaign was focused on beating Trump, trying to make it a referendum on him, that O'Malley Dillon said they don't need to reinvent the wheel in litigating the case to the American public. Just one more note. Last night, the Democratic fundraising platform Act Blue announced that the Harris presidential campaign had raised more than $46 million from grassroots donors in the hour.
Do you think she was calling grassroots donors for those 10 hours? No. Talked about the astroturfing. I don't think that that's real. That's fine. That's what Act Blue says. They also helped funnel money for Black Lives Matter, for any number of groups. I don't believe what they're saying. I fully believe this is astroturfing. This is garbage.
Since Biden endorsed her. That is a money bomb.
Mara Lice, and then what is the sense among Democrats about Harris's chances?
Well, I think that they are cautiously optimistic, but we just don't have a lot of evidence here. Our latest NPR poll, NPR Marist PBS poll, showed that she runs nationally against Trump about the same as Biden does. What we don't have are any public battleground polls to see how she does. But Democrats are cautiously optimistic. Even Democratic leaders like Nancy Pelosi, who haven't yet endorsed her and are talking about some kind of an open process. That doesn't mean that they're against Kamala. They just want something that doesn't look like a coronation.
Mara, on Friday, the Biden campaign was insistent that they were staying in it until the race was over. So what changed? What's the timeline?
Well, this was a real process. You know, this is a hard thing. Don't forget, this is a politician, Joe Biden, whose political identity, his origin story is of someone who's always counted out and always proves his critics wrong. He started out very defiant. He was going to stay in the race. He sounded like he was in denial about what the polls showed, but in the end, he was not deluded. And his aides came to him, showed him internal polling that his standing in battleground states was collapsing.
Threatened him with a 12.
And he wanted to get out before the trickle of Democrats calling for him to get out turned into a tidal wave.
So, Tamara, how much do voters know about Kamala Harris?
Like all vice presidents, she has been at many points pretty invisible and struggled to carve out her own political identity. I was recently in North Carolina talking to voters who were like, where is she and what is she doing? But the reality is that she's been on dozens of foreign trips and became a leading voice for the administration on abortion. But a lot of people don't really feel like they know her aside from being a first. And what they do know, maybe through the lens of Republican attacks on her handling of immigration and even her laughter. The hits are already coming, some about policy and some that lean on well-worn tropes about Black women. There are Democratic outside groups, including Emily's List. I spoke with them yesterday planning.
Do you hear it? Anything they're coming at, right? They're talking about the border, you know, some of this bullshit about the color of her skin, anything, right? Any attacks, doesn't matter. This is just out here and defending anything they possibly can. She's been kind of invisible. People don't really know who she is, whatever, but she's so qualified, right? No one knows who she is. She's never really done anything. She hasn't really been doing anything. Vice presidents don't really do anything, but she's made dozens of foreign trips, and she's this leading voice on abortion, and she's constantly attacking Trump, even though it's been borne out since Roe was retracted or was brought down, that repealed, thank you, that the country's figuring it out. The states who wanted it are wanting it, they're figuring it out. We're finding our line, and if we can find some form of moral cohesion, this probably doesn't need to be written in law in that many places. But they're covering literally any way they can.
Lean on, know her aside from being a first. And what they do know, maybe through the lens of Republican attacks on her handling of immigration and even her laughter. The hits are already coming, some about policy and some that lean on well-worn tropes about Black women. There are Democratic outside groups, including Emily's List. I spoke with them yesterday, planning to spend millions of dollars to make sure voters feel comfortable with Harris as president.
Okay, but here we go, because Democrats have less than a month before their convention.
Mean? What does feel comfortable mean? Right? That means tricking you into believing that she's qualified. That's what that means.
In Chicago. So, Tamara, can you walk us through exactly what is going to happen next? I mean, what's the process like? What will it involve?
We are headed for a highly condensed primary campaign where the only voters are the 4,700 or so delegates to the Democratic National Convention in Chicago. This is a group of elected Democrats, party activists, and volunteers who will decide. And if they haven't coalesced behind a candidate by the start of the convention, it could go through multiple rounds of voting until a candidate gets the majority.
That's it. No votes from you, no input from you. It's just these delegates, this dog shit that they're doing, this ridiculous fucking system that they have going on here. The Republicans do it too. Again, you have no vote. You have no choice in this. They select that Kamala Harris is the person you get to vote for. You had no say up until this point. Any of the primaries that you did not fucking matter because they doctored the candidates, they doctored the debates, they contrived the entire scenario. You had no choice from the beginning, even now down till the end. Yeah, we talked about the roll call voting. They chose this for you.
And in the meantime, one expert on the process told me it will be like reality TV that you've never seen before, at least not since 1968, that convention. Interestingly, there is nothing in the U.S. Constitution about how nominees are chosen. This is a party process, which feels weird given that millions of people voted in the primary, but the rules are quite clear, even if Republicans and former President Trump are trying to make it sound nefarious.
I do like reality TV. I am a big fan
It's
of that.
again, the Republicans will do the same thing. Like, I'm not saying that they wouldn't. That doesn't make this not sketchy. That doesn't make it not nefarious. That doesn't make it not fucked up. That after a doctored primary process in which people voted for Joe Biden after really not having any other choices, after not being given any legitimate choices other than Joe Biden, now Kamala Harris is selected for you. You never voted for her other than vice president. You never had that option if you were a Democratic voter and you're voting for primaries. You never had that option. Now here she is. That is nefarious. That is fucking sketch. I don't care how you want to spin it. Even if the Republicans would do the same thing, which I believe they would, that doesn't make this not sketch. That doesn't make this appropriate. That doesn't mean that we should be okay with this.
What about your thoughts on what this process will involve next?
Well, the big question is if anyone stands up to run against her. There's going to be tremendous pressure on Democrats who want to preserve their, quote, viability in the system, as Bill Clinton said once, to not do that. The outpouring of endorsements show you that Democrats at least, and the lack of a serious challenger, shows you that at least Democrats seem to be completing step one of this process, which is party unity. And that's really important. But the other big question is, can Kamala Harris rise to the occasion? One top Democrat said to me that no politician in modern times has ever been asked to rise to the occasion like this. She was not a great candidate in 2020. She dropped out before any votes were cast. But I think Democrats do feel this is their last best hope to defeat Trump, or barring that, to at least flip the House and stop a complete Trump takeover of.
Now for a look at how President Trump and the Republicans are going at Vice President Harris.
Yes, Harris still has to secure the Democratic Party's nomination, but Republicans are already running as if she has. They are trying to tie her to Biden's biggest challenges, including immigration and inflation.
White House correspondent Franco Ordonez, who is covering the Trump campaign, is here to talk about strategy. So, Franco, what was the response from Trump's camp about Biden stepping down?
I mean, they say it doesn't matter. I mean, soon after Biden dropped out, Trump was already on his Truth Social saying he doesn't care who he faces on the left, saying they're just more of the same. But the campaign did quickly pivot to Harris, calling her the, quote, enabler in chief. I mean, they're basically accusing her of concealing Biden's physical and mental fitness issues. They're looking to paint Harris and Biden as one, saying, quote, there is no difference between the two. And that.
So we talked about this. There's no doubt that she was complacent in the coup that took place in removing Joe Biden from the presidential nomination process. There's no doubt about that. There's no doubt that she watched him degrade and did nothing. She said nothing up until the point that it was opportune for her to take that position in power. There's no doubt about that. We've heard the reporting. We've seen it, right? That is the reality that we understand, and certainly what I choose to believe, and I don't want that to take any legitimacy away. I just am trying to leave a little bit of room, I guess, for error. But I believe that is the reality, that he was forced out. I said that in the last video that I did. He's going to have to be forced out. And again, when it comes to Joe Biden, Kamala Harris, if if she wants to be separated from him, then there's no credit to be taken from the last 4 years. But if you want to be involved in that, if you want to take the credit, you also have to take the heat for everything that didn't happen. This borders our shit. All of this stuff that we're talking about, you don't get to have it both ways. The same thing we're talking about Trump, where they're talking about how he's an idiot, but also he's a genius playing 5D chess. You don't get to have it both ways. Either he's a total fool or he knows what he's talking about. It's probably somewhere in the middle, but we're living in this world of extremes now, and that's what they're doing.
She didn't do anything when she could about inflation and when the border was in chaos.
Yeah, the nicknames came quickly, as they always seem to do. You were in Grand Rapids, where Trump held his first rally with his new running mate, J.D. Vance. That was before the announcement, but they already were attacking Kamala Harris.
Yeah, they were kind of workshopping attacks. Vance particularly wasted no time going after Harris, even alluding to the idea that she hasn't worked really hard while he has.
Well, I don't know, Kamala. I did serve in the United States Marine Corps and build a business. What the hell have you done other than collect a check?
You know, and he accused Harris of being Biden's, quote, border czar during record-breaking migration.
So tell us about that, because, I mean, immigration has been a part of Harris's portfolio in the White House.
Yeah, I mean, while she was tasked with leading efforts to address the root causes of migration, that's basically working with Latin American governments, she actually was never specifically appointed to fixing the border like a czar would, I guess. But that hasn't stopped Republicans from attacking.
Like a czar would, I guess. What about these articles? Right? What about these articles? So I guess these are allegations too. These are allegations that she was the border czar, even though at the time, these are all written at the time. This is it's an allegation. This is a wild allegation that she's the border czar. She wouldn't have handled it like a czar would. She was never really in charge of anything having to do with the border. It was only these root causes. This is all, they're trying to retcon this out of existence. We've just looked at the articles. This is not real. This is a fabrication. They're trying to lie about this. They're covering up history. Again, I'm not trying to put all of this on you, but you don't get to have it both ways where you have nothing at all. That is a complete total lie, and if you're going to do that, they're going to try and put everything on you. If you accept responsibility for what you did and didn't do, maybe admit some errors, which no one will ever do in politics, but if you do that, maybe they won't play this fucking game. But this is where we're at now. Again, this world of extremes where she either had everything to do with it or nothing at all. I don't think that that's the reality. I don't think that it's probably somewhere in the middle. But this is what happened. You play this game of extremes, and this is a lie. The idea that she had nothing to do with it, was never anything like a border czar, nothing to do with the border, that's a lie. That's not true. We just looked at these articles.
Her on the border, I mean, it's really become a Republican talking point. The Republican National Committee actually also put out a video Sunday attacking her, and it started like this.
Warning. The following may upset liberals who don't want voters to know the truth about Kamala Harris.
You know, they used selective cuts, and they just went on the attack on Harris over immigration, and they charged that she neglected the border. Again, not necessarily her area.
All right, so let's just say
that's
it is
not
Kamala
true,
Harris.
but that might even be the fairest take at all, that she neglected the border, because that was one of the original charges that she was given, was to handle the border. So that might be one of the fairest takes, is just that she neglected the border. That's pretty legit. I haven't heard that specific one outside of this, but there's so much stuff I've listened to since then. That might be the best take, the fairest one of all, the fairest maiden of all.
It's Tuesday, July 23rd. She's never won a presidential primary, so can she win in November? We start here.
It is my intention to go out and earn this nomination and to win.
Vice President Kamala Harris has boxed out political challengers, but questions linger about whether she can beat
Boxed
Donald
him out,
Trump.
right? Definitely wasn't a coup, wasn't sus at all. She fucking boxed him out. She wasn't just immediately selected and put in there. She boxed him out, bro. She outgamed the entire thing, even though she never won a single primary.
Vulnerabilities about her resume.
As the former prosecutor rises to the top of the ticket, we'll examine the case for and against Harris. When President Biden made the historic decision to drop out of the race for the White House this weekend, you could have imagined that triggering an absolute free-for-all for who would take his place.
I'm hoping you'll give every bit of your heart and soul that you gave to me to Kamala.
And yet, Vice President Kamala Harris appears to have locked this down.
We have doors to knock on. We have people to
Again, this implies as though she competed for it somehow, but he said, Brad Milkey said in the very beginning, she's never won a single primary. So to say that she locked it down and like box these people out, They selected her. The DNC, Joe Biden selected her. They endorsed her and then moved on. You never got to vote for her. You never even had the opportunity. You never had the choice. Never had the freedom to vote for her. So it's hilarious. Like immediately they're flipping it.
Right after President Biden endorsed her on Sunday, Harris went to work. If politics is about the business of people, well, Harris, sitting at home in sweats and sneakers this weekend, worked the phones for more than 10 hours on Sunday night.
She's just like you. I'm sure she wasn't wearing several tens of thousands of dollars worth of jewelry when she did that, even though she was wearing sweats and sneaks, because she's just like you.
Sources say she called more than 100 people, party leaders, members of Congress, labor unions, civil rights organizations. She didn't get off the phone except when she was ordering food for the staff. By yesterday, she had secured on-the-record endorsements from most Democrats on Capitol Hill and, crucially, just about every Democrat who is rumored to be a potential challenger.
Pledge my support to her. The rest of that conversation, I said would stay between us.
Act Blue, the Democratic fundraising group, announced.
This is what I imagine. I imagine she's calling them, telling them what precipitated what happened to the White House, right? As far as the 25th, this Cy Hirsch article we talked about, and like telling everybody else, get the fucking line. I have the shit now. I have the torch. I'm going. It's time to play the motherfucking game. What option do they have? What other choice do they have? They're not going to win. The entirety of the party is behind Kamala Harris. The entirety of the system, all the levers, right? They're all being pulled for Harris.
$81 million in donations, its largest one-day haul in its history. Democratic voters seemed to be breathing a sigh of relief.
I think she would make a great president. I know she's been busy these last 4 years.
I think she reminds me of like an auntie, like at the cookout or something.
I think that there's so many young people that are totally great with having a woman president.
What should the people, what should our listeners know or remember about Kamala Harris?
Sure, Brad, let's go all the way back. So Kamala Harris was born to Indian and Jamaican immigrants all the way over on that other coast in Oakland, California.
Who cares?
And then her resume is peppered with just a ton of firsts. She was the nation's first Indian American senator.
Who cares?
California's first female and South Asian AG.
Who cares? That's not a qualification. That's not an accomplishment. It's a thing about you. It's a thing that happened. That's just an event that happened around you taking a position. That's not an accomplishment. Doesn't work that way. That's what so many of these people have. This debate that Charlie Kirk just did. This one was like, well, she's the first, female vice president. I don't. Just watch it.
So, you keep saying that Kamala Harris is a DEI candidate, and I feel like my main fallacy with this argument is that competency can't be objectively determined.
What's her greatest accomplishment as vice president?
As vice president, being the first female all-black president. We've never had that
No.
before.
Like I got that, but like, what's her accomplishment that made people's lives better?
I don't know. Vice presidents don't really do much, to be honest.
Can you name one thing she's done that's good?
No, probably not.
What does the president see as the vice president's biggest achievement during their time in office together?
So look, because they've been partners, those achievements have been done, certainly those historic, unprecedented achievements have been done together. I'll say this, the president believes in the vice president leadership, her temperament, her experience, and he has said this himself. One of the proudest decisions that he made in 2020 was selecting her as vice president because he believed that she can go on day one. And you've seen them do that together on day one of this administration. That doesn't change. I'm not going to parse out anything from here. They have been partners. She's been a critical partner for this president for during this term, and will continue to do so. You will see them together on Thursday in Maryland, where they would talk about their next announcement on lowering costs for the American people.
There's not a specific policy achievement. It's a comprehensive whole.
I would say it's a comprehensive whole.
And of course, she was the first woman to become vice president.
I will be the first.
Who cares?
But I will not be the last.
So just a slew of glass ceilings broken in this bio. And it's interesting to see how all of that history meets the moment that we're at right now.
Can you explain why I'm seeing coconuts everywhere all of a sudden? Like, can we just tackle that mystery?
Well, it's because, Brad, you exist in the context of everything that comes before you, you know? Kamala Harris has reawoken the K-Hive. That's her group of stands, like the Beehive or the BTS Army, to really mobilize on her behalf. It's come essentially out of nowhere, like you were saying.
Everything is in context.
So last year, she was at a swearing-in ceremony, and during her remarks, she said her mother used to tell her something along the lines of,
I don't know what's wrong with you young people. You think you just fell out of a coconut tree?
Nobody ever fucking said
basically
that.
like, were you just born yesterday, right? And then she goes, well, no, you exist of the context of everything that's become before you. In the way that Kamala Harris usually delivers these lines, a little bit of a laugh, a little bit of some snark. And those lines have gone insanely viral. If you go on TikTok, X, you're just going to be inundated with Kamala Harris coconut tree memes.
You think you just fell out of a coconut tree? You think you just fell out of a coconut tree?
They're being remixed into songs, into Kesha songs.
Dance.
And it's funny, right, Brad? Because I think initially these things were going viral as a bit of a dig or an insult to Harris. Like, these were on the timeline well before she was the choice of Joe Biden to succeed him. They were meant to be like, yeah, look at that wacky aunt that you bring to Thanksgiving if you're somebody who likes her, or ribbing her with a little bit of love. But we saw a ton of this on the timeline from Republicans and even Democrats who are critical of her, being like, kind of look at that wacky lady. I'm sure you've seen Donald Trump's already trying to test out her nickname.
Kamala, I call her Laughing Kamala. You ever watch her laugh? She's crazy.
But it speaks as that, and it's so interesting to how organically the K-Hive and something about where Democrats are at now have completely flipped those attack lines on its head.
Well, and this is the thing, Brittany, is like, because we say that there's all this excitement around her in the Democratic Party at the moment, and yet, like, she lost the primary 4 years ago, right? And I'm not even sure it's a given that she would have won an open primary this spring, right? Biden himself was reportedly unsure about whether she could beat Trump in any scenario. Why is that? Like, what at this point, what do people in the Beltway see as her strengths and weaknesses as a candidate?
Well, I think that she meets the party in a really fascinating place, right? Because Democrats in D.C. really want to tout the Biden-Harris administration as one of the most progressive on its record, on its face. But it was so mired in Biden having to play defense on his age, on his performance in the debate, and so on, right? And so they see a tremendous opportunity.
That was only the last 3 months that's been a thing, right? The debate happened in June. This is July that this is going on. So what, 1 month that he had to defend against the debate? And I mean, all the show with his age, quit fucking falling. Quit sounding like a fucking idiot. Why don't put a few sentences together? Like, that's not a ridiculous thing for people to be saying about you. If the rest of the world is talking about it, we should definitely be talking about it here. Mired, right? Just mired by it. Trump wasn't mired by anything in his presidency, right? Not an insane amount of resistance or anything like that. There's definitely didn't deal with any of that. No personal attacks, no shit going on in the media, no bullshit that he had to deal with. You know, again, the last thing that I want to do is stand here and be like, well, Donald Trump, but what are we doing? And what are we honestly doing here? This is, again, these cover-ups that they're doing, they're transparent. This is insanity.
Rebranding, refreshing what it means to be Democrat now, especially when it comes to mission-critical Democratic policies like abortion.
The idea that states are able to do this is a little like saying we're going to turn civil rights back to the states.
It should have been a slam dunk for Democrats, but Brad, you heard what Joe Biden said on that debate on CNN. He just wasn't able to stick the landing.
Look, there's so many young women who have been, including a young woman who just was murdered, and he went to the funeral. The idea that she was murdered by an immigrant.
But Kamala Harris is universally praised as somebody who can pick up the mantle of abortion rights in America.
The government should not be telling a woman what to do with her body.
And she's been an effective messenger on abortion, traveling the country as vice president, running the stump. And so they know that she's been tested and vetted on that issue. And frankly, now Democrats can just talk about age in a way they just really did not want to, Brad, before, because look at their guy. Just as old as the other guy, in fact, if not older.
Super fair.
However, you know, she's never won a presidential election, right, Brad? You were just saying. She was in that primary. She dropped out for the Iowa caucuses. There were a lot of vulnerabilities about her resume, especially when it comes to her prosecutorial record. I mean, we've heard Democrats in the last couple of days say, look, she can bring the case to Donald Trump. She could prosecute him.
So hear me when I say,
that's what she says.
I know Donald Trump's type.
But many Democrats were wary of her former record as a prosecutor, saying that she was tough on members of her own community, that she was too rigid, she wasn't progressive enough when she was AG of California. And then folks who are progressive within the own party are saying she's a cop. She doesn't have her own interest in mind, right? And I think that that's going to be a real issue for her, on top of her being labeled as the borders are by Republicans. She was handed this really thick...
Not by Republicans. Articles. It's bullshit.
Portfolio by Joe Biden of issues she had to tackle when she first came into office, including the Northern Triangle, immigration coming up from the South. And listen, Republicans have been on top of the drumbeat that immigration is a huge issue in America, tying it to crime.
It's a massive invasion at our southern border that has spread misery, crime, poverty, disease, and destruction to communities.
How do you attempt to message against sexism, against racism that has already been thrown her way? How do you message
You
against
can't. There's nothing about it. All of this is just sexist. It's racist. It's nonsense. You can't say things like this, right? No attack is legitimate. No attack is legitimate because she's a lady and she's a person of color. And how fucking dare you say anything other than Yas Queen?
Very serious policy vulnerabilities. They're going to be polling. They're going to be putting her out on the stump as much as possible. We already heard from her yesterday.
And it is my intention to go out and earn this nomination.
Stump, yes. Interview, no.
We're going to be seeing a lot more of Kamala Harris, the potential leader, the potential messenger, and probably a lot more of Joe Biden, sitting pretty in the White House and letting Harris lead in the way that he hopes she can. Joe Biden believes she's up to the moment, but my question is, do Democrats? I just don't know.
I got to imagine this is the whole concern is the more voters saw her in 2020, the worse her numbers got. She came in like a thunderbolt, and yet she's not the president right now. We'll see if she becomes one, though. Brittany Shepard, thank you so much. Now, we've been talking about the Democrats because they've had to change their entire campaign, but when you think about it, they're not the only ones. Former President Donald Trump has been reacting to all this in real time, so how does this affect his approach to the race for the White House? ABC's executive editorial producer John Santucci has covered the former president extensively for the last 8 years. If there's anyone who knows how Trump campaigns operate, it's him. John, how are Trump and his team reacting to a potential Kamala Harris nomination?
Listen, I think the public face of it is that, they're taking it on, they're leaning in, they're telling folks that, we're basically going to do everything we can to tie Kamala Harris to Joe Biden because they've all been part of the same team.
Kamala Harris said something to the effect that I have no loyalty to this country. Well, I don't know, Kamala. I did serve in the United States Marine Corps and build a business. What the hell have you done other than collect a check?
Okay, so do you also see how interesting it is that in the NPR podcast, they took that same clip but didn't play the first 2 seconds and said he accused her of not having done anything. But they're talking about her accusation that he wasn't loyal to the country. Two completely different statements out of one sentence. It's... I did notice that the first time that I listened to these is just the back-to-back now. That's hilarious. Whoa, who's lying? Who's telling the truth? What's it really about? Anything they want. As we can see, when you take responsibilities compared to the results of what we saw, no matter how you slice it, Kamala Harris was either completely ineffective or completely uninvolved over the last 4 years and in the background complacent in this plot, in this coup that we talked about, to replace Joe Biden and sit in the background until it was time to strike and replace Joe Biden as the nominee, because we had to know what's going on here. They saw the degradation of Joe Biden as a candidate. They saw the degradation as a man, as a president. They saw all of these things happening just like we did. There was no secret. They were not blinding themselves. They were just trying to blind you. So if that's what she was doing, she's just sitting back the whole time, just waiting, talking to other people like, man, he really fucking looks like shit, it's horrible. I don't really know what we're gonna do about this. She's like, oh, I don't know. It's super weird. I don't know what we're gonna do. It's just sitting, waiting, tricking all of you, hoping that you wouldn't believe your lying eyes, whether it is the economy or the border. Don't worry about your experience. Don't worry about your wallet. Don't worry about your home, your bills, nothing like that. Trust us when we're telling you the border is fine. We aren't seeing record numbers. Believe us when we tell you inflation is fine. You aren't actually hurting. Actually, you're working more hours, you have more jobs, you have more money. The market is good. Everything is fine. You're not killing yourself with your house payment. You're not working overtime all the time and still not able to make ends meet. don't believe what's going on here. Don't worry about there. Don't worry about any of these records, these numbers that we're hiding as far as the consumer price index. We're taking your rent out, your food out, all the things that you pay for on a daily basis, on a monthly basis that actually come out of your check. Don't worry about those things. Let us tell you what's really going on. You are expected by these people, by those in the powers that be, to just shut up and just accept what's going on. Because through this process in the last few weeks that Kamala Harris has been, since she's been anointed, it's been completely unacceptable. It's become completely unacceptable to criticize any woman in power, not just Kamala Harris. Any woman. I mean, I've literally seen it to the point that people are posting memes that, you know, when you criticize women in power, they don't hear you, your daughters, wives, and mothers do. So there's that. That's what we're doing now, right? That's the way that we're going to handle things, is we're just going to act as though if you're a woman, you are removed or exempt from any form of criticism because you're a woman. It doesn't matter if you're the president, if you're the VP, if you want to be the president, if you want to be the most powerful person on the planet, that doesn't matter. We're not going to say bad shit about you because you're a fucking woman, right? That's nonsense. I have a daughter, I have a wife, I have a mother, I have all these things, right? It's not like I walk around all day criticizing everybody. I treat them the same as I treat everybody else. And if you want to be the top dog, if you want to play the game that everybody else wants to play, that the most popular game in town, I'm going to hold you to the same standard. Nothing is going to be different here, and it shouldn't be. Nothing should be different. You are not exempt from criticism because you wear a fucking dress sometimes. It doesn't work that way. So they want to create this scenario where you can't criticize any woman, let alone question why a woman who nobody likes, who has less than one term in federal office, no primary votes, no good polling in the primaries, and everybody hated up until 5 minutes ago, is now selected as apparently the best choice to defeat Donald Trump, even though it's still apparently up in the air whether or not she actually did anything over the last 4 years. The questions about Kamala Harris become even more interesting when you consider the consistent background chants of defend our democracy that have come from this party over the last several months. For months now, maybe even years, the Democrats have been walking around just screaming about how this election is the most important one, because if Donald Trump is allowed to get into office, he's going to end democracy. No one's ever going to get to vote again. It's going to be, we're moving to an authoritarianism immediately. It's completely over. This one is the most important. But if they really believed that, then they would be coming correct against Donald Trump with the most legit candidate that they had, the strongest candidate possible, instead of playing this weird game of tradition that they're doing about, you know, just traditionally in the past we have the VP has been the heir to the throne, and that's why she needs to go in. Why? Why are you saying that? You don't actually care about tradition. You don't actually care about any of the history. That's why you want to change everything. That's why you're tearing down statues. That's why you're expanding the court. You're doing all this stuff, right? You don't actually care about tradition. In this one moment, we do, because this is the one. Kamala Harris is the anointed one. She's the puppet. She is the selected one. She's the easiest one for us to maneuver. That's why she's here, right? And that's how you know that they don't really believe this, because they found somebody who, like I said, is the perfect puppet, the perfect puppet. Somebody that they can use, that is completely transparent, that is totally hollow, that they can push forward and run this race against Donald Trump. And if she loses, they're not worried about her career because nobody fucking likes her anyway. They picked a nobody, just like I expected they would, right? I predicted these things, and that's what I was talking about. They picked a complete nobody for VP. They picked Tim Walz, right? No one knows who this is. He's the governor of Minnesota. No one fucking has any idea who Tim Walz is. I predicted to what Dean Phillips, because I believed that there was just like the most nobody name that I could think of. It's so that if they lose to Trump, which I think that they probably will, they don't care when their career is over. They are done. Let's get that straight right now, that if Kamala Harris and Tim Walz lose to Donald Trump and fucking J.D. Vance, they're done. Their career is over, but nobody will miss them. Everybody fucking hates them anyway. That's why they picked them. But instead of trying, right, because the Democrats know this system better than anybody else, because they have spent the most time researching how to doctor things, instead of selecting somebody strong, they have chosen somebody like Kamala Harris, and they are content to just pull every single lever, which is many, that they have in order to get her into office. And when they're done, you're just expected to say thank you to Kamala Harris and walk away and just believe that she has now come as a savior of our democracy and everything is going to be okay now. This is the great Dave Smith, part of the problem, addressing this very thing, this fakeness, this completely manufactured aspect of the Kamala Harris campaign.
As Jesus-like figures holding a rally that it warms the soul of the American spirit. And I mean, Rob, I got to go back to Ronald Reagan's 1980 campaign. I just can't think of an example where there was like a big political rally that put a smile on a lot of people's face. Say perhaps like, the 35,000 that Donald Trump's done since he's been running for president. Rob, can you think of the last time there was an image in your mind of like a big rally, right, with a political figure speaking at it, and people were like smiling and laughing and enjoying themselves? But obviously, if you think of that, what comes to mind is Kamala Harris. That's like, what world are we living in? It's just so bananas. Like, it's just funny to watch this where I'm like, this can't possibly work. This can't possibly be sold. Man, if this does end up working, my God, then the whole thing is just fake, and they can just create anything out of thin air, because this is so like, it's so wild to have these people, first of all, go right from how phenomenal Joe Biden is and the cheap fakes and that the economy's so good, you just don't know it. Sharp as attack, all this stuff. Admitting he just pooped his pants. Okay, yes, we have to put the president in a senior home, but this other VP who we were all skipping over because she's so wildly unpopular? Oh, she has the it factor now. And there's a new VP candidate, the guy who none of you have ever heard of before in your life, except for the last 24 hours. He's, a transformative figure. He's essentially the next Obama. I know he looks like a fat dad to you, but don't let that mess with you. No, this is putting a smile on America's face. Now, of course, as we're in the middle of this massive propaganda campaign, which has been quite entertaining for me personally to watch. I just think it's like, this one, the Kamala Harris propaganda campaign is one that I'm looking at and just going to myself like, wait, they think this can work? They really, like, okay, yes, the most unpopular vice president in American history has been transformed into a cultural phenomenon and a charismatic leader, and everybody's so excited about her and whatever. It's wild to watch. As I'm staying firm in my position that this is 100% astroturfed bullshit. None of this is real. But
astroturfing is something that we're going to discuss a little more, but I think that's very interesting. Astroturfing is the idea. We'll look at this really quick. Astroturfing is specifically regarding Democratic funding for political campaigns, in which you pretend that all of these, there it is, astroturfing. We'll read the actual. Astroturfing is the deceptive practice of hiding the sponsors of an orchestrated message or organization, political advertising, religious or public relations, to make it appear as though it originates from and is supported by unsolicited grassroots participants. And so what that means is they take all of these corporate dollars. Act Blue is the background of all these things, right? Especially for the Democrats, and they release these large amounts of money in little bits, and they hide them under people's names. And so there has been many articles and much research done in which you can do the research, you can find the articles, which people are like looking up their own names, and they're finding out that they have reportedly made donations to various political campaigns that don't actually exist, that they've never actually done, but people have donated in their name. Of course they expect it to work. Of course they do. And it is to great degree. There are many people who hate Donald Trump so much, who hate Republicans so much, and are so filled with lies from the corporate media that they are literally willing to grab onto this. They are willing to vote for Kamala Harris with absolutely no information at all. They don't care what they know about her. They don't care about her history, her policies, or anything. They are going to grab onto that. It's working, right? As he talked about, she's hitting fundraising goals left and fucking right, whether it's astroturfing, which I also believe that it is, or it's grassroots like they claim it is. She's hitting fundraising goals. This is crazy how much money she's making. There are polls all the time that are saying that she's defeating Donald Trump. And now it depends if you're looking at Nate Silver, or you're looking at this, whether Donald Trump is going to win or Kamala Harris is going to win. I have a serious difficulty with polling, because the last two election cycles are really the two that I've paid the most attention to. I'm going to be 30 years old this year. So 2016 was the first election cycle that I could actually vote in, federal election cycle, presidential election cycle. And 2016, I don't know if I said that right. 2016 was the first election cycle that I could actually vote in for the presidential race. And I didn't pay that much attention. So it's just really the last two, this is very confusing, that I paid the most attention. And it's obvious to me the polling doesn't matter. After the Clinton campaign, after the 2016 election, and maybe even 2018 during those midterms, I was like, all right, there's still something here. I remember having arguments with my neighbor about, like, it does mean something. You can still garner a little bit of information from it. It doesn't. The only thing you can garner from polling is the very base. You know what the bases are because that's what never shifts. That's all that you can gather from that. All the margins is all bullshit, right? And so I have a really difficult time, especially I have conversations with Josh Keaton consistently about political campaigns and about how's this person doing and what do you think about this, Kamala Harris, blah, blah, blah. He's talking about polling all the time, and I don't fault him for that because there are really no other ways for us to measure it. There are no other metrics for us to go by as to try and predict what the future of the election is going to be other than polling. But they're all done differently. They all have their own weights. They'll have their own issues. There's no way for me to use that as a valid anchor for any of my opinions. And it's shitty, but I have to go on vibes, you know, and I hate to be wooey about it, but I just have to go off of what I am, the energy and the conversation that I'm hearing in these different podcasts on the internet and the conversations that I'm having. That's what I have to go off of and kind of take the temperature for the country. And that has its issues. Also, obviously, if you're talking about social media, there's bots, there's trolls, there's all kinds of shit that you can't take into account. But this polling thing that people are now hanging on to, that like she is going to win guaranteed, I don't think this is it's obvious. This is not a good way to be going about it. It was never a good way to think about politics, and especially now when there's so much deception, so many people that are willing to vote for Donald Trump, but like not tell their friends or not tell their neighbors. You know, this doesn't work. It's not a good predictor anymore. So I don't stand by this, but that doesn't erase, again, those vibes that I'm feeling that like this is working. We're seeing these videos all the time that people are gonna vote for Kamala Harris. They know fucking nothing about her. It doesn't matter to them. They think that you're stupid. They know that you're stupid, and they are not shy about that. It's obvious by the way they conduct themselves. In true Democratic fashion, this entire process, this Kamala Harris anointment, is completed over a roll call vote over the phone. It does not end at the DNC, in which there's an official vote happen, in which everybody can come out, they can state their case. This happens over the phone, only the delegates. You gotta be in the club to be on the phone, and that's how they choose. That's how they vote for who you get to choose for president. Okay, so here's this article from the AP talking about the roll call vote, right? Delegates to the Democratic National Convention began casting votes on Thursday to select their nominee for president, but unlike in past years, they did so not in the raucous party atmosphere of the convention floor or even during the convention itself. Instead, they participated in what the party called a virtual roll call vote, filling out electronic ballots from their homes, offices, or vacation spots more than 2 weeks before the first delegate stepped foot inside Chicago's United Center. Harris was the only candidate eligible to receive votes after no other candidate qualified by the party's deadline. We talked about this. They made sure nobody else could do it. They ensured nobody else could be on that ballot. And instead of doing it in front of everyone, where there could be protests, where there could be questions, they did it online. You can either not vote, whether you can vote president, or you can vote for Kamala Harris. Those are the options you get. How democratic of the Democratic Party. When they think of you, right, when they think about what's going to get you to vote for them, what's going to convince you, this is what they think of.
Hey, if you love your body, let me hear you make some noise. And if you want to keep loving your body, ladies, let me hear you make some noise.
If you want to keep loving your body, make sure you vote Kamala.
Body crazy, curvy, wait. Yeah, yeah. Body crazy, curvy, wait. Yeah, yeah. They gon' click it if it's me. All my pictures been getting these through the quarantine. I'm very well. Come on, yes, you can tell. Got people from years ago.
This is what they think of you. That's what they think. That's the abortion policy from the Harris administration. If you want to keep loving your body, Meg the Stallion. That's what they have for you. There's nothing, right? It says right here, and this, no plan for the border, no plan for the energy crisis, no plan for inflation, no plan for protecting babies in the womb. That's it. Just babies in the womb. That's their abortion policy. You want to keep loving your body, make sure you vote Kamala Harris, because everybody else going to take it from you. This is what they think of you. They think that you're fucking stupid. They think that you're dumb. This is what they give you. No policy, nothing of any substance, right? This right here, this is what you get. Isn't that lovely? So they immediately dumb down the campaign with this, what I'm sure they consider BIPOC-friendly entertainment. The blacks love this, the people love this, the folks love this, we're going to keep doing this, and they shy away from any type of policy. They're not doing any interviews, they're not having any serious conversations with reporters. I mean, literally no questions. At this point, it's the 7th of September. They have done one interview, one CNN interview that was 30 minutes edited afterwards. They released it in 3 parts, so it's cut up. She's not by herself. She's with Tim Walz, which is traditional, I guess, for them to do an interview together. But like in the day or two after, he's announced as on the ticket, not 2 weeks afterwards, 3 weeks afterwards. This is what they're doing now. There's no interviews. There's no policy. There is absolutely nothing. The campaign is so unserious. Her website literally is completely devoid of policy. If you go to the campaign website, the only thing that you can do is give them money. There are no options. There's no information. There's an about Kamala, an about Tim Walz. That is it. So as soon as you open the website, Harris Walz urgent, chip in before the debate, 2 days, 19 hours, 41 minutes. It's the very first thing, give us money, right? Now let's go continue to KamalaHarris.com. At the top, very first thing, $25, $47,100. You can donate more. Okay, so let's see. Harris Walz, let's win this. Join the campaign again. You can sign up and we'll send you things. Meet Kamala Harris. Okay, meet Vice President Kamala Harris. So this is about her past, right? As the daughter, her parents are part of civil rights marches. She's running for president. She's a trusted partner. All the things that they've achieved, right? This is stuff that Biden-Harris administration did. 60 million new jobs, $1 trillion in infrastructure, right? This is all stuff they did. Proudly represented the United States on the global stage. Oh, 150, blah, blah, blah. In the U.S. Senate, she led on legislation, right? So this is when she's senator. As California's Attorney General, she went up against big banks. Okay, so this is what she did, building her career on the Alameda County District Attorney's Office. She specialized in prosecuting. Okay, again, this is the past. She's a proud graduate of Howard University. Again, in the past, 2013, her best friend set her up on a blind way. Doug Emhoff, married. Through her life, she's broken barriers. Okay, 2015, 2025, we're going to do our part. Oh, that's it. Let's see, there must be something else. Let's go to the top. Meet Tim Walz. Okay, so let's see. Again, this is all shit from his past. Champion of America's working family, shared commitment, more done to help middle class, lifelong Midwesterner. He's a gun owner. Yeah, of course. This is ridiculous. For 6 terms, Governor Walz met his wife. Okay, again, this is in the past. Okay, let's see. We're going to take action. Oh, we can give them money. We can donate. We can find an event center, enter your zip code. Get started. Let's see, store. Oh, so we can buy stuff. Or we can give them more money. These are things that they sell, items that they sell. So again, this is their campaign website. There is nothing here. There is no policy. There is nothing. Even the FAQs, what's the status of my order? I made a mistake on my order. I received my order, but I'm missing something. Nothing here about policy. There is no, there is nothing. There's no substance here. They don't fucking care about it. They know you don't care. They know that this is not why you are here. You are not here because you give a fuck about the country, because you want better, because you want your life to get better, or anything. They know you're here because you hate Donald Trump and you want to take him down. There is nothing to this. This whole campaign, they are feasting on your hate. And when they get into office, when they have the opportunity, they will rape you for everything they can. They will take everything that they can, everything they haven't already taken from you. There is no substance here. There is nothing. This should concern you deeply. If you are somebody who's gravitated towards her, this should deeply concern you, not only about her, but about who you are, that you don't give a fuck about this. You don't care how this is being done. You bought into this. There's no policy here. She isn't even telling you what she's going to do. This is her campaign website. I don't care anything she said on the trail, right? People say all kinds of stuff. There isn't even a platform on the website. So what's the base for anything that she's saying? What's the motivation? What's the justification? What is the research behind it? There's nothing there. Just shit that she's saying out on the stage. It means nothing. This is how fucking dumb they think you are. Because of her almost complete inability to be authentic or speak off the cuff except for the debate. Apparently, they are hiding her. The DNC is hiding Kamala Harris. They are not doing any interviews with her. They have done one interview this entire time since she has begun running as the presidential candidate for the Democratic Party. She has done one formal sit-down interview. It was with Tim Walz. She was there again, which apparently is pretty traditional when they pick their running mate, but to do very quickly afterwards, not several weeks afterwards. And it was edited. It was cut up in 3 parts over, I believe, 30 minutes with Dana Bash, and it was edited. The whole thing was edited. It was not live. It was not off the cuff. It was anything. It was completely rehearsed, and it was horrific. They are hiding her. Compare this with Donald Trump, who is consistently holding enormous rallies, who is on podcasts all over the place, who is doing all kinds of random shows, and even compare that with RFK, who has been on, I mean, more podcasts than I think anybody can even think of. He's been on Theo Von, which Donald Trump was just on. He's been on Flagrant. He's been on anything. Those are just the comedian ones, but he's been on any podcast that I can think of. I have seen RFK on. This should not be a problem. If you want to be the president, if you want to run the nation, you should be able to sit down for 30 minutes, an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours, and speak about your policies, about the nation, about what you think, about your opinions, your feelings, your passions, your anything, for 3 hours with somebody who's genuine. The fact that she cannot do that, the fact that the Democratic Party knows that she cannot do that, and they're hiding her just like they did during Joe Biden 2020, this should tell you something. She is hollow. This is not a real person. This is a fake, fabricated puppet human being that the Democratic Party is using to push forward their neoliberal policies. This is not what you want. This is not going to be good for you. Even if you hate Donald Trump, this is not what you want. I promise you. I feel like it's just so obvious that there's no substance to this woman. There are no redeeming qualities to her. She is a puppet. She doesn't represent anything that the people actually want. She's just a hate figure, an avenue for their hate to flow through. Like I said, it's obvious that you can see from the protests outside the DNC, from the protests that are happening from her policies. People do not want this. The voters do not actually want this. They just hate Donald Trump so much they're blinded by what's going on, and they're willing to just take anything, even just neutral towards this woman, and they'll take that. That's enough for them. The convention is actually a really funny thing to mention, because while the protests were going on outside, there's actually Chris Cuomo is inside, and he's calling out the millionaires and the billionaires that are sitting above all of the regular voters in the DNC, and he's talking about how they don't actually represent you. The party is working for these people. They don't actually care about you. They don't represent you. It's weird. And no one cares. It's happening right in front. They're telling you right there, and you just still don't care. This is this clip I was talking about, Chris Cuomo calling out these people at the DNC.
A big theme here at the DNC is that they're going to go after corporate gouging, and they're going to go after corporations, whether it's in taxes, largesse, loopholes. The RNC, we heard the same thing. They're going after the elites, the 2 sets of rules. Let me reveal a reality to you that has to be spoken to here, okay? These are the soldiers. These are the men and the women that go back to their constituencies and their communities, and they fight. They take time from their jobs. They take time from their families. Republicans and Democrats alike, that's what they do. They need to charge these people up. They need to be able to get them on board. But there's another reality that is literally looking down on them. Greg, look at the ring of sweets, okay? This is not unique to Democrats. There is a game of money. When people talk about Uni-party,
they don't care about you.
We are strangled by the money reality in our politics. Those suites start at 500 grand. You think there's like a teacher group up in there? You think it's like the Cub Scouts of Columbia County, South Carolina, that's up in those boxes? Some of them are lobbies and good things. The media boxes, you think they're free? Why do you think I'm on the floor? News Nation is not a broke company. Nexstar is a massive organization. We are corporate media. We don't have one of those boxes, because that's the game. You pay to play. Those boxes are filled with the same people that they say they're going to regulate. They are literally looking down on the faithful and being told, yeah, we're going to break down on them. We're going to make them pay their share. They paid $500,000, $700,000, $1 million, $1.5 million to have those seats. They get hotel suites that are probably gifted to the party. And the same thing is true with the Republican side. And they're going to take them down. They're going to change how it is. They are looking down from on high at the people who make the difference in their communities. And that is the reality of politics. And I had my producer walk around and show you those suites. Now, they're not all the same. They're not all the same. But the reality is, in 2000, they spent $300 million on presidential campaigns. 24 years later, you know what they're expected to spend? $10 billion. Do you know how much money Harris has raised in the last couple of weeks? Hundreds of millions. And that's success. A lot of it's small donor, a lot of it isn't.
It's not.
The most dangerous money in politics is now legal money.
Remember, we talked about this, the astroturfing, right? That's where this is coming from. They tell you this is small donors. This is my belief. This is astroturfing because they don't actually represent you. They don't actually, he's telling you this. And it honestly makes me sad. I'm sure that a lot of this feels like, I said this at the top, that it feels like it's a hit piece on Kamala Harris. I will wrap this up at the end so this is more clear. This is transparent. They do not care about you. They are capitalizing on your hate to take advantage of you. Everything that she is saying, we're talking about the debate, everything she's saying about Donald Trump only serves the rich, Donald Trump doesn't serve you, he doesn't talk about you. They are lying to you. The entire time they're lying to you. Chris Cuomo, who used to be on MSNBC, I believe it was, had his own show. He held up all of these narratives, the COVID, all of this stuff, right? He lied on national television about having COVID, about how all this worked out. He's telling you, he's being transparent with you, this whole thing is a lie, down to the convention. They are lying to you. And it makes me sad that people are allowing themselves to be taken advantage of like this. It is horrific to see, and you all deserve better than this, and you're tricking yourselves. You are allowing yourselves to be fooled because they're telling you, he's telling you. If you watched, Chris Cuomo told you, you are allowing yourself to be fooled. You can't do this anymore. It's a tragedy. It's a crime to yourself that you're doing this. You can't vote for this woman. You cannot do it. They will take advantage of you. They will take everything from you. I promise. The only thing that is giving Kamala Harris any genuine appeal is the stark contrast that she provided to Joe Biden as far as age and just overall appearance, everything about her, the stark contrast she provides, and then her attacks on Donald Trump, the opposition that she provides to Donald Trump. That is all that is there. And for the people that are voting for it, that's enough. Like I said, the neutrality towards her is enough. They don't know anything about her history. They don't know anything about who she is as a person, about how she got here, about what she's done, that she's been vice president, and what her plans are, her positions, nothing. It doesn't matter. Charlie Kirk, people are doing these videos all the time where they're asking people on the street, what's your favorite thing about Kamala Harris? What's her best accomplishment? They have nothing. The only thing they have is they're combating this DEI thing, but that's what they say is her biggest accomplishment. Well, she's breaking the odds of these barriers because she's the first female black vice president. That's not an accomplishment. That's a thing about her. Anywhere she goes in government, that's going to be an aspect of what's going on. That means nothing. This is not an accomplishment. That is just a thing about her. And that's why, that's part of the issue with this DI thing, is that that's what gets carried forward all the time. It immediately lowers the bar of expectation for her as the vice president of the United States. She doesn't have to do anything because she's already broken barriers. She's already raising the bar to where she's at now by just existing in this spot. That is not enough. That is not good enough. It's not good enough if you're a white male, if you're Kamala Harris. It doesn't matter what color you are, what gender you are. That is not good enough if you want to control people, you want to be in charge of all the people. That's not good enough. You need to provide a better case if this is what your aspiration is. If you want everyone to vote for you to allow you to control them, you need to come with more than that, with more than just, I'm a black lady and wouldn't it be sick if I was the first person to do this thing. And the Democratic Party, much like the puppet that they have chosen, is completely devoid of any substance at all. We have seen how far they have moved from the original, not even the original, what we knew as Democrats when I was a child. I was born in 1994. And again, the roles of Republican and Democrat have almost switched now. The Democrats would like to expand government control to allow, to tell you what you can do in your life and supposedly give you more services. They're lying to you. All of this is lying to you. It's just using the levers of power. It's extremely, it's devastating to watch because I was raised as a Democrat. I was raised believing that these things were real. I was raised on food stamps, on government assistance, believing that these things are the way to go. And to see these beliefs and these needs be capitalized on and expanded to control the people who need these services because they're being tricked into government control on their government needs, based on their basic needs, is horrifically sad to see. And I think that it's obvious when you look at somebody like RFK compared to Kamala Harris, how far the party has shifted. In my opinion, Robert F. Kennedy Jr. is what a real Democrat is. He is a moderate person who is definitely on the left, but has some conservative ideals that is a reasonable person that you can speak with. That is a true Democrat. Tulsi Gabbard is also what the Democratic Party wants to be, what it should be. This Kamala Harris, this new wave that they have ridden to where they are now is not the Democratic Party, and it's why they're failing. If they would go back to who they were, to what they really want to be, what the voters want them to be, they could succeed. But they are struggling, battling for this in between, this 3-4%, because they continue to play the same games that Republicans do. And this is the point I'm driving you. They are all the same. It is just the Democrats right now because they are currently in power and they are jockeying to try and keep that power. That is why they are in my focus right now. That's why Kamala Harris in particular, is under the magnifying glass. And like I said, I think it's really easy to see if you compare Kamala Harris's DNC speech to RFK's speech when he drops out of the race. The difference is obvious. And what you would want, what we would all want to lead the Democratic Party is obvious in my opinion. And it's just kind of highlights the tragedy in the way the Democratic Party handled him. And in the end, how they shot themselves in the foot by refusing to allow him to compete for that spot. Because I truly believe if they had left him alone and allowed him to just run in the race and run in the primaries, he would be winning and he could defeat Donald Trump. But they have contrived this entire scenario to play the same game that we did in 2020. And this is what we get. If we accept the current polling, which I do not, and we talked about that a little bit earlier because of my difficulties with it, then the Republicans are going to really have to double down and buckle down and focus on policy to expose the hollow lunacy and the contrived nature of what the Democrats are doing. This whole thing they're getting into, this identity stuff where they're like, oh, is she Indian? Is she black? This stuff has got to stop because this is not a winning position on all of this. They need to get it together and hammer on policy to expose what's going on there because there is nothing. Even if we look at the policies that she did post eventually, there is nothing there. They are copied policies. They're transparent. Nothing is real there. And that's why the hate, everything during the debate, it was just all hate and attacks on Donald Trump because there's hate and attacks on Donald Trump because there's nothing there. The Republicans just need to continue and stay focused on the lack of policy because this level, the nothing that is there should be completely unacceptable to anybody, whether Republican, Democrat, no one. You shouldn't be willing to vote for anybody who doesn't even tell you what they're going to do. I mean, we're less than 60 days out from voting in the election. There are some states that are starting to do early voting right now in the mail, and we just learned about her policies. She just put them out 3 days ago. This shouldn't be okay with you. This should not be acceptable. No one should be voting for her because, again, the only strategy that there is to speak of is to capitalize on the hate of Donald Trump. Everything that happens that's going on right now is blamed on Donald Trump. He was the president 4 years ago. They continue to ignore because it's convenient for them to not acknowledge who is in the White House right now. Kamala Harris is actively in the White House right now. This is the winning ticket. Continue to hammer on this. The only thing anybody can go back to is, well, the vice president doesn't really do anything. So then she's done nothing and she has no qualifications and she doesn't deserve to be president. That's what that means. There is no winning for them on this. You either own what's going on in the White House or you sat back and you did nothing and you took part in a coup. There is no win. This is the path to victory, is what are you doing right now though? Where have you been at? I refuse to believe, and I think that we all should, that if Kamala Harris has been sitting back for 3 years with the dopest policies anybody's ever heard of, everybody refused to listen to her. I just don't believe that that's the reality, but that's what they want you to believe, is that she's had the plan the whole time. She's always had the juice. She was just waiting because she wasn't vice president and she isn't allowed to do anything. That's lunacy. That's not how any of this works. And you know that deep down. If you believe in the government, then why would you believe that's how any of this works? Why would you believe in Kamala Harris, in the validity of her DI status, of her black female status, if it garners her nothing, right? If she just goes there to be ignored, then nothing is really different anyway, and fuck the whole system. You guys this is cognitive dissonance that people are, even if it's not just two, it's multiple competing ideals that people are happy to just let live in their head because they fucking hate Donald Trump so much, because they are so lost in the sauce of what people are telling them, what corporate media is telling them, that they can't see the reality of what their lives are and what they can be and what they will be if Kamala Harris and Democrats continue to hold power. All of that being considered, I don't have much faith, especially after watching that debate, that Donald Trump will stay focused. I am honestly questioning whether or not he is going to win. I know after the assassination attempt, I was convinced that there was nothing that could happen that would stop him from winning the election, and it seems as though it is his to give away, and he almost is intent on doing just that. I'm concerned about his ability to win, even if he does stay focused. Everything that I know about election systems, about polling, the underlying systems. There's something that's going on here, and for Trump's win to be accepted, in my opinion, it is going to have to be overwhelming. It needs to be unquestionable, and it is going to have to withstand the fortification of the election that we saw last time, because we read the article, they posted the articles, Time Magazine, that they fortified the election, is what they said, to ensure that everything worked out in their favor. They are going to have to overwhelmingly win this election, the Republicans, Donald Trump, for it to go down that way. There is going to be a lot of questions. There's going to be a lot of upsetness on the side of the Democrats if he wins. That it is going to have to be a substantial victory, in my opinion, for it to be totally fine with everybody. I mean, don't get me wrong. This system is manufactured. It has been for some time now. Kamala Harris is the most transparently manufactured figure I have seen make it this far into a race. I mean, like I said, we are less than 60 days out. She is knocking on the doorstep of the presidency, and she is almost not a real person. She is like a hologram. And she is knocking on the fucking door, and I just can't believe that this is what we've done to ourselves. And I think potentially my deepest fear is that if we allow Kamala Harris, this selection, this coronated figure, to take place in the Oval Office, we are going to be taking one of the final steps away from this system. We are truly handing the keys to the kingdom over to the powers that be, that we don't have control anymore. They will have proven that they are able to contrive and manufacture almost every aspect of the government from the top down, however they want to. They can put candidates in place, they can put judges, they can put anything they want in place and just pull the powers, pull the levers, and make the system work however they want. And this is it. We're giving it away if we allow this one to take place. They are able to literally control every aspect of the system. Kamala Harris, as a person, is nothing. She is just a vessel for and represents a group of people that are looking down on us and only aim to control us. It's the group that Chris Cuomo just talked about. They're literally looking down on us from above, and they want to control every aspect of our lives. And this group stands, the powers that be, as I call them, they stand opposed currently by a growing coalition of very imperfect people that I believe actually care about this nation. And of course, I'm speaking chiefly about Donald Trump, RFK, Tulsi Gabbard. This is beginning to become a bigger thing as we're seeing it all the time. And these people, like I said, RFK, Tulsi Gabbard, I truly believe that they care about America and they believe in what it can become and what it represents for the world. And they are, like I said, I would consider very moderate Democrats, and there are two of the many, many Democratic members who left that party, including myself, who left that party because it no longer represents what we believe in. It has gone so far away from true Democratic values. It is not even, RFK said this, it is a far cry from what his father and what his uncle would believe to be and what they see as the Democratic Party today. Let me be very clear. These people are not heroes. They are not idols. They are currently better than the opposition, who, like I said, is allowed to take power, I believe will fully cement their ability to contrive and fabricate our election systems, our society from any level that they want to. This is why this deserves attention. This is why I believe this is important. These people, this coalition is important. It's because they're standing opposed to, I hate to sound like a fearmonger or this is the time, but this is a very important election. I believe this candidate is extremely dangerous because of what she represents, not because of her, because she is nothing, like I said, because of what she represents. And that's why the coalition is important, because they are what is standing in between us and this potential future. And I think that matters. It's not because I want to embrace everything that Donald Trump and RFK and Tulsi Gabbard believe in and what they want. It's because they are currently, this sounds horrific because it sounds like I'm putting them up there, but they're what's standing in between us and them right now. That's the other choice that we're being given, and it's so plain to me how much better that option is. I speak about it in these terms because I truly fear for what can happen in our country in the next 5 years. And that's why I'm talking about the election, these short terms of time, is because things can really happen this quickly. Earlier in the episode, in this video, I referenced an interview that I heard recently with Michael Malice, and he was asked about the conditions of communism. You know, how do you know what has to happen, and when does the light switch flip? And Michael Malice said, I don't believe that it's like that. You know, it's not like one day there's a switch is flipped and now you're in communism. Eventually, slowly over time, the conditions are created for the system to take place, and eventually that is what happens as you are there. This is what I fear that we're doing here, is we are slowly over time continuing to create the conditions for the system that we know and that we care about, and that provides us with some semblance of freedom and choice to be taken away from us. And it's not just that it's happening around us, we're letting it happen. We're slowly giving our rights away, we're giving our freedoms away, we're voting for people that want to take things from us. We're voting for people who want to lock up certain portions of the population. I really don't want to fearmonger. I'm really not trying to be an extremist. But when they're talking about these things, when they're selecting portions of the population and calling them domestic violent extremists, they need to be removed. You know, these mandatory buybacks they claim to not support, they're removing your freedoms from you. They're removing your abilities to defend those freedoms. And this is what matters most, is your choice. That's what I care about most. That's why I make these videos. That's why I have this channel. It's because I care about choice. I care about your ability to choose what's right for you. It's not right for me to choose for you. It's not right for anyone to choose for you, especially not a government that you didn't consent to. These things are not right. And I'm really scared that these are the choices that we're making. And this one, if we choose, again, if we allow this person, Kamala Harris, to take place, to be anointed into this office, we're putting, in my concerned opinion, one of the final nails in this coffin for ourselves. And I don't know how we turn that around if we cement this power in the hands of the powers that be to do what they want with election systems and with our government completely. I don't know how we go back from that. That's been the only redeeming thing I've had this whole time, and I've spoken with many, many people about this. It's the only chance I believe we have, one of the only chances, is to have someone, an executive who enters office who doesn't care about themselves, who's willing to be a martyr and willing to strip the powers away from the executive branch to try and shrink the government. And if we allow this to take place, there's no chance of that. This is where we're at now. I don't believe Donald Trump will do that. I believe if he puts the right people in place, RFK chiefly, there's a potential for this to happen. I don't believe in Donald Trump to the end. I don't believe that he's the savior. I believe, I said, he's currently better than the opposition, and he's gonna do a better job for us than Kamala Harris will. As I said, I fear that some of these conditions that Michael Malice talked about are being created. We can see these things in the direction the Democratic Party and some of those voters are going towards. There are an increasing number of people that are asking for gun buybacks, restrictions on assault weapons. Like I said earlier, this is your ability to defend yourself. This is how the final line between you and your removal of your rights is your ability, your right to defend yourself, that no one can remove from you. You are the only one who can give this away. We are seeing the budget continue to grow, money leaving the country, the dollar losing power globally, while we're getting less and less government services and being promised more and more all the time. And the things we do get are lowering in quality continuously. The Democrats are consistently asking and begging, pushing for an expansion of the courts because they don't like the way that things are being done. They want to expand and change things so that they can have control over the government system, so they can control the laws. This is not democratic. We've talked already, there's been growing control of the election systems over the way that the elections are done, over the candidates, over they're choosing every aspect of this for you so that you have less and less control over even what your options are. And to add to the budget, every time we talk about this, every time the Democrats talk about this, they don't talk about, even the Republicans do this, they don't talk about cutting the budget. They don't talk about trying to save the country by lowering our spending. They blame the rich every single time. It's the rich that are doing this to you. It's the billionaires that are doing this to you. It's not us that's stealing from you. It's not us that refuses to lower our budget or lower our expenditures. It's those people, the people that you work for, that are stealing from you. And the Democrats are not shy about what they want. They're telling you precisely what their intentions are by the policies they're pushing forward. We can see these things all the time. They're talking about them. And if we take a look at the globe, just to expand a little bit further, we can see how these policies play out when they're allowed to take place. The one exception that Michael Malice gave to these rules, these concepts that he gave out, is the slow trickle from socialism to communism that happened in Venezuela. A few weeks ago in Venezuela, there was an open coup by Nicolas Maduro, the president there, to try and retain power. This was only exposed because of the work of citizen journalists exposing the vote counts, going over the voter rolls to show the way they had taken power. this was allowed to take place, this coup was allowed to take place because the voting systems, election systems were controlled completely by the government. In response, there is rioting, there is chaos all over the country of Venezuela that we have seen for years, decades now, in response to this fall into communism that they have had there. We've seen people eating out of the trash, eating out of dumpsters because they can't buy food because their money means nothing. The people of Venezuela have no recourse, including firearms, to defend themselves. They have no way to try and defend their intentions, defend what they want from the government, because everything has been removed from them. Outside of the riot footage that we have seen, we know this is true because the citizens of Venezuela flee their country in droves. They come here, and a lot of them, one of the first things they do is arm themselves. And I don't blame them when that's the life you've been subjected to. Of course you want to arm yourself, especially if you have the ability. You don't want anyone to be able to take your rights from you again, like they've already done. And the chaos of the border underlines the Dems' intentions and their policies that deny us choice, that deny us freedom, and deny us the ability to maintain safety in our own country. And let me explain exactly what I mean, right? Nicolas Maduro, many of these countries, they're funded outside. They have to receive outside funding. The only thing, especially in Venezuela, that really they have is oil. We buy a lot of their oil. When Joe Biden took office, they halted all new drilling permits in the United States. They started buying a bunch of new Venezuelan oil instead of pumping oil here to try and feed into this green policy thing that they're doing. So our money leads straight into Venezuela, like it wasn't before when Donald Trump. Our money goes into Venezuela, which gives the Venezuelan government, Nicolas Maduro, the power, the juice, the ability to pull off this coup, right? So he's victimizing his citizens. They get scared. They come here, right, which makes sense, is only reasonable. We then take them in, right, which again is kind of reasonable. They're fleeing communism. That's kind of what we do. Communism sucks. This is what we do here. Democracy is the best. Republican is the best. That's what we come here. Then they're here, and now we're taking care of them. They're tripling down on the way they're abusing you. Your money is not only funding the government that's abusing these people, they're now coming here and you are supporting their lifestyle with your taxes. This government, our government, Venezuelan government, everybody, they're triple dipping into your pockets to deny you not only freedom through your money, but to deny you safety. The people who are coming here are fucking scared. I don't blame them. They're being attacked when they're come from. There are people who are literally trying to kill them, whether it's the government or gangs. People who are trying to kill them. I don't blame them for being scared. But this is precisely what they want. The Democrats don't want you to feel safe. The government doesn't want you to feel safe. It's not just Democrats. This is where we get down to the point. It doesn't matter who it is. They don't want you to feel safe. They don't want you to feel secure. They don't want you to have money. They don't want you to have freedom. They want to deny you all of that when they want to lie to you about it when they have the opportunity to tell the truth. This is what they're doing. I've just laid out for you in 30 seconds how they are double fucking you with your wallets and now in your safety. They're lying to you every single day this is happening. I am driven on this show and in my life by the independence of choice. I want everybody to have the freedom to choose what is right for them. Videos like we saw out of Venezuela or a few years ago out of Hong Kong terrify me to my core. Because while these people in Venezuela and Hong Kong are on varying levels of economic status, right, they have had everything taken from them, absolutely everything, down to any illusion of choice or influence in their government, which makes it inherently illegitimate right off of the bat. And this is why I'm such a broken record about the gun things, because we see these people, they're literally trying to defend themselves against a government with umbrellas and porta-potty doors for fucking shields. This is what they're brought down to because they have been subjected to this treatment by their government. They have had everything removed from them. Any ability to choose, any ability to defend themselves, they're using umbrellas and porta-potty doors, trash can lids to try and push back tear gas because they have no other way to deal with anything. They have no other way to try and defend themselves against a government who can take and has taken everything from them. And I genuinely believe that this is the future the Democrats want, that this is what they want for us, this is what they want for the people, to be in control, to have total control over us. And if we're not careful with what we do, with choices that we make, the people we allow to be in power, we're walking ourselves directly into captivity. What I really want to drive home, what I've been trying to hit on this entire video, is that when you hate somebody, when you're filled with hate, when you're overcome with emotion, with anger, you're easy to take advantage of. And I believe that's happening to many, many people in this country right now. I'm not standing here, I'm not sitting here telling you Kamala Harris is a Marxist, these people are Marxists, because I don't think a lot of them even truly understand what's going on there. They're not devout communists. They are beholden to a system that they don't understand, but is promised to give them power they believe will give them power. The Democrats that are asking for this power are openly advocating and pushing towards a system that will take your rights, just as it's taken the rights of many people around the globe and the lives of millions more. For those of you, many, many people that I know that are turning to the Democrats to try and avoid Trump in order to try and have a funnel, something to do with this hatred for Donald Trump, the only real true warning that I can give you, the best piece of advice, is that the enemy of your enemy is not always your friend.